Daniel loved the wilderness. He was a quiet man who enjoyed being alone in nature. Cities felt too noisy and crowded for him, so he spent most of his time hiking through forests, climbing mountains, and sleeping under the stars. The wild was his home. It gave him peace and freedom. One morning, Daniel was walking through a part of the forest he hadn't explored before. The air was fresh, and sunlight peeked through the trees, making the ground look golden. He stopped to drink water from his bottle when suddenly, a loud scream broke the silence. Without thinking twice, Daniel grabbed his backpack and ran toward the sound. He pushed through bushes and jumped over rocks until he found the source of the noise. There, on the ground, was a young woman holding her leg. Her face was pale, and tears were streaming down her cheeks. On her ankle, 2 red puncture marks stood out, clear signs of a snake bite. "Don't move," Daniel said firmly as he knelt beside her. "What happened?" I don't know," she stammered, wincing in pain. "I stepped off the trail, and then something bit me." Daniel quickly looked around and spotted a snake disappearing into the bushes. His heart sank. It was venomous. They didn't have much time. "My name's Daniel," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We need to act fast. Can you tell me your name?" "Emma," she whispered weakly. "Okay, Emma. We'll get through this together. Just stay calm and let me help you." Daniel worked quickly. He used his knife to cut strips of fabric from his shirt and tied them tightly above her wound to slow the venom. Then, he carefully lifted her onto his back and started heading toward the nearest ranger station. As they moved, Emma held onto him tightly, her breathing shallow but steady. Though scared, she trusted Daniel to save her. Little did either of them know, this chance meeting would change their lives forever. Carrying Emma wasn't easy. She was lighter than he expected, but the terrain was rough. Steep hills, slippery rocks, and thick bushes made every step a challenge. Daniel focused on keeping his breathing steady, reminding himself that panic wouldn't help either of them. "Are you okay?" he asked over his shoulder, glancing back at Emma. "I think so," she replied weakly, her voice shaky. "Thank you for helping me." "You're welcome," Daniel said simply. "Just hang on tight. We'll get you to safety soon." Emma nodded, though her grip around his neck tightened slightly. Despite her fear, she felt a flicker of hope. Something about Daniel's calm demeanor reassured her. He knew what he was doing, and that gave her strength. As they walked, Daniel kept talking to keep Emma alert. He asked small questions about her life, anything to distract her from the pain and fear. "What were you doing out here alone?" he asked. "I wanted to clear my head," she admitted softly. "Things have been complicated lately. I thought hiking would help." Daniel nodded, understanding more than she realized. The wilderness has a way of putting things into perspective, but you should always be careful. Snakes aren't the only danger out here. Emma managed a faint smile. "I'll remember that next time." "Good," Daniel replied with a hint of humor. "Maybe take a guide with you next time." They shared a quiet laugh, and for a moment, the tension eased between them. After nearly an hour of walking, Daniel spotted a clearing up ahead. In the distance, he could see the ranger station, a small wooden cabin surrounded by tall trees. Relief washed over him, but he didn't let it show. They weren't safe yet. When they finally reached the cabin, Daniel knocked loudly on the door. A park ranger opened it moments later, his eyes widening at the sight of Emma in Daniel's arms. "Snake bite," Daniel explained quickly. "We need first aid and maybe a ride to the hospital." The ranger sprang into action, helping Daniel lay Emma down on a cot inside. Together, they cleaned the wound, applied antiseptic, and wrapped it properly. The ranger also called for an ambulance, ensuring Emma would get proper medical care as soon as possible. While they waited, Daniel stayed by Emma's side, checking her pulse and making sure she stayed awake. "You've got a good heart," Emma murmured, looking up at him. "Not many people would go out of their way like this." "It's not about going out of my way," Daniel replied gently. "It's about doing what's right. Besides, anyone else would have done the same." Emma shook her head faintly. "No, they wouldn't. You saved my life, Daniel. I won't forget that." Her words touched him deeply, though he tried not to show it. He wasn't used to being thanked or even noticed for his actions. Solitude had taught him to rely only on himself, but there was something about Emma's gratitude that made him feel different. When the ambulance arrived, paramedics loaded Emma onto a stretcher and prepared to take her to the hospital. Before leaving, she reached out to grab Daniel's hand. "Will you come with me?" she asked quietly. "I don't want to face this alone." Daniel hesitated. He hadn't planned on sticking around after saving her. It wasn't his job to play hero beyond today. But seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, he couldn't say no. "Of course," he said firmly. "I'll stay until you're settled." Emma smiled weakly, squeezing his hand before letting go. At the hospital, doctors confirmed that Daniel's quick thinking had likely saved Emma's life. The tourniquet he'd made slowed the venom enough to prevent serious damage. As Emma recovered in her room, she insisted on thanking Daniel properly. "You didn't have to stay," she said when he visited her later that evening. "Yes, I did," Daniel replied with a shrug. "You needed someone. And besides, I'm partly responsible for getting you here safely." Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're too humble for your own good." Daniel chuckled, feeling oddly comfortable around her despite their differences. Out in the wild, they had relied on each other to survive. Now, in the sterile environment of the hospital, that bond remained intact. Before leaving for the night, Daniel promised to check on her again tomorrow. "Get some rest," he told her. "You're tougher than you look. You'll be fine." Emma watched him leave, admiration lingering in her gaze. There was something special about this man who had risked everything to save a stranger. She didn't know much about him yet, but one thing was certain. He had changed her life forever. Over the next few days, Daniel visited Emma regularly at the hospital. Though her condition improved steadily, she still needed rest and care. Each time he walked into her room, she lit up with a smile, grateful for his presence. "You don't have to keep coming," she said one afternoon as he handed her a cup of tea. "I'm sure you have better things to do than babysit me." Daniel shrugged, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "Not really. Besides, it's nice to take a break from hiking for a while. Hospitals are kind of cozy compared to the wild." Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're impossible. But seriously, thank you for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." "It's nothing," Daniel replied modestly, though his cheeks flushed slightly at her praise. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they wouldn't," Emma insisted firmly. "You're different, Daniel. You saved my life, and you didn't ask for anything in return." Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel cleared his throat, changing the subject. "So, what made you decide to hike alone anyway?" he asked casually. "Most people come out here with friends or guides." Emma sighed, looking down at her hands. "It's complicated. My life hasn't been easy lately. Work has been overwhelming, and I just needed some space to think." Hiking seemed like a good way to escape all the noise. Daniel nodded, understanding more than she realized. Though their lives were worlds apart, they shared a common desire to find peace away from the chaos. "Sounds familiar," he admitted. "That's why I spend so much time in the wilderness. Out there it's quiet. No distractions, no expectations. Just you and the land." Emma studied him thoughtfully. "Do you ever get lonely, being out there all by yourself?" "Sometimes," Daniel confessed. "But loneliness isn't always bad. It gives you time to think, to figure out who you are without everyone else telling you what to do." She smiled faintly, sensing a depth to him that went beyond his rugged exterior. There was wisdom in his words, a quiet strength that came from years of solitude. As the days passed, their conversations grew deeper. Emma began opening up about her life, her family's wealth, the pressure of living up to expectations, and the isolation she felt despite having everything money could buy. "I hate it sometimes," she admitted during one visit. "Everyone expects me to be perfect because of my last name. They don't see me. They only see the title." Daniel listened intently, nodding occasionally but letting her speak freely. When she finished, he leaned forward slightly. "It sounds like you carry a lot of weight on your shoulders," he said gently. "But none of that defines you, Emma. Titles and money don't make someone who they are. It's how they treat others that matters." His words struck a chord deep within her. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, with honesty and kindness, yet without judgment. "What about you?" she asked after a pause. "What drives you to live out in the wild?" Daniel hesitated, considering his answer. "Freedom, I guess. Growing up, I never fit into the world most people live in. Cities feel suffocating to me. All the noise, the rules, the constant rush. The wilderness is simple, honest. It doesn't try to change you or tell you who to be." Emma nodded slowly, seeing how different their lives were, and yet how similar their struggles were beneath the surface. Both of them longed for authenticity, for a place where they could truly belong. One evening, as the sun set outside her window, Emma turned to Daniel with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she began, "this whole experience has made me realize something. Before, I thought I had everything figured out. Money, success, all of it. But none of those things mattered when I was lying on the ground, bitten by that snake. All that mattered was surviving, and you being there to help me." Daniel smiled faintly, meeting her gaze. "Life has a funny way of teaching us what's important, doesn't it?" "It does," Emma agreed softly. "And now, I can't stop thinking about how lucky I am. Not just because you saved me, but because I got to meet someone like you. Someone real." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the emotions she tried to hide. Daniel reached out, placing a comforting hand over hers. "You're pretty amazing yourself, Emma," he said sincerely. "Don't forget that." For a moment, they simply sat there, sharing an unspoken connection. Despite their vastly different worlds, they had found common ground in adversity and in each other. By the time Emma was discharged from the hospital, their bond had grown stronger than either of them expected. She invited Daniel to stay at her family's estate until he decided where to go next, insisting he deserved a proper thank you for saving her life. At first, Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to luxury or grand gestures, and the idea of stepping into Emma's world intimidated him. But something about her sincerity and the trust they had built made him agree. Little did he know, this decision would lead to revelations that would change both their lives forever. When Daniel arrived at Emma's family estate, he was overwhelmed by its sheer size and beauty. The property sprawled across acres of land, with lush gardens, towering trees, and a grand stone fort standing proudly at its center. It looked like something out of a history book, ancient yet majestic. "This is where you live?" Daniel asked, his voice tinged with awe as they walked toward the main house. Emma laughed softly, noticing his surprise. "Not exactly. This place belongs to my family. It's been in our name for generations. I just oversee it now." "Oversee it?" Daniel repeated, raising an eyebrow. "What does that even mean?" Before she could answer, a group of staff members greeted them warmly, offering to take Daniel's bag and show him to his room. He followed quietly, still taking in the opulence around him. Everything, from the polished marble floors to the intricate chandeliers, felt worlds away from the simplicity of his life in the wilderness. That evening, Emma invited Daniel to join her for dinner in the grand dining hall. The table was set with fine china and sparkling silverware, lit by the warm glow of candlelight. Though elegant, the setting made Daniel feel out of place. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble," he said, gesturing to the lavish spread before them. "It's not trouble," Emma replied with a smile. "I wanted to thank you properly, for saving my life and for staying with me when I needed someone. This is the least I can do." Daniel nodded, appreciating her kindness but still feeling uneasy. Wealth and luxury weren't part of his world, and he worried about fitting into hers. As they ate, Emma began sharing more about her responsibilities and the truth behind the estate. "My family owns several properties," she explained, her tone softening. "But this one, the fort, is special. It's historic, built centuries ago as a trading post and military stronghold. Over time, it became a symbol of our legacy. Now, it's mostly neglected, falling apart due to lack of funds and attention. Daniel listened intently, intrigued by her passion for preserving the old structure. I've always dreamed of restoring it, Emma continued, turning it into something meaningful again, a museum maybe or a community space, but it's expensive, and convincing others to invest hasn't been easy. Her voice carried a mix of frustration and hope, revealing how much the project meant to her. That's incredible, Daniel said sincerely. You're trying to breathe new life into something so important. Emma smiled faintly, touched by his understanding. It's more than just a building to me. It's a piece of history, a reminder of where we came from. I want people to see its value, not just as a relic, but as a bridge between the past and the future. The next morning, Emma took Daniel on a tour of the fort. As they explored its weathered walls and crumbling towers, she pointed out areas that needed repair and shared stories about its rich history. This used to be the Great Hall, she said, standing in a large empty room with cracked windows and faded murals on the ceiling. Imagine feasts and celebrations happening right here centuries ago. Daniel nodded, imagining the sounds of laughter and music echoing through the space. Despite its current state, the fort radiated charm and potential. You'd be amazing at fixing this place up, Emma remarked casually as they climbed a spiral staircase. With your skills, you could restore it to its former glory. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. I'm no architect or builder, just a guy who knows how to survive in the wild. But that's exactly what this place needs, Emma insisted, turning to face him. Someone who sees its soul, not just its flaws. Someone like you. Her words caught him off guard, stirring emotions he hadn't expected. For years, he had wandered aimlessly, seeking freedom in solitude. But now, standing inside the ancient fort, he felt a flicker of purpose, a chance to leave a mark on something lasting. Later that day, as they sat together in the garden overlooking the fort, Emma decided to share another truth, one she had kept hidden until now. There's something else you should know, she began hesitantly. About me, I mean. Daniel glanced at her, sensing the weight of her words. What is it? Emma took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. My family were wealthy, very wealthy. This estate, the fort, all of it is worth millions. And as the heiress, I'll inherit everything someday. She paused, watching his reaction closely. To her relief, Daniel didn't seem shocked or judgmental, just thoughtful. I kind of figured, he admitted with a small smile. But knowing it and hearing it are two different things. I didn't tell you sooner because I didn't want it to change how you saw me, she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. I wanted you to know me first, not my bank account or my last name. Daniel reached out, placing a reassuring hand over hers. Your money doesn't define you, Emma. What matters is how you treat people. And I already know you're one of the kindest, most genuine people I've ever met. Tears welled up in her eyes as she squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you for saying that. Not everyone sees me the way you do. Over the following days, Daniel found himself drawn deeper into Emma's world. He spent hours sketching ideas for the fort's restoration, combining practical solutions with creative touches. Meanwhile, Emma watched him work, marveling at his talent and dedication. You really care about this, don't you? She asked one afternoon as they reviewed his plans. I do, Daniel replied honestly. It feels meaningful, like I'm doing something that matters. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. For years, she had struggled to find someone who shared her vision for the fort. Now, with Daniel by her side, she believed anything was possible. Still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. Would he stay once the initial excitement wore off? Or would their differences drive them apart? One evening, as they stood together on the fort's ramparts watching the sunset, Emma turned to Daniel with a nervous expression. What happens next? She asked softly. After the fort is restored, I mean. Daniel hesitated, considering her question. Staying in one place wasn't part of his plan, but neither was leaving Emma behind. I guess that depends on both of us, he said finally, meeting her gaze. On whether we're willing to build something together, not just the fort, but whatever comes after. Emma's eyes filled with hope as she realized what he was saying. Their journey wasn't just about restoring a historic site. It was about creating a future, side by side. With Daniel's sketches and plans in hand, Emma and Daniel began working together to restore the old fort. It was a massive project, requiring not just money but time, effort, and teamwork. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly excited about her responsibilities, because now, she wasn't alone. Daniel threw himself into the work with the same determination he brought to everything else. He coordinated with local craftsmen, sourced materials, and even rolled up his sleeves to help rebuild parts of the structure himself. His hands-on approach earned him respect from the workers, many of whom had doubted an outsider could understand the fort's significance. Emma, meanwhile, handled the logistics, securing permits, managing budgets, and reaching out to historians to ensure the restoration stayed true to the fort's original design. She also worked tirelessly to involve the community, hosting events where residents could share their own stories and memories of the landmark. People need to feel connected to this place, she explained to Daniel one afternoon as they reviewed blueprints under the shade of a tree. If we want it to thrive again, it has to belong to everyone, not just my family. Daniel nodded, impressed by her vision. You're turning it into more than just a building. You're giving it meaning. That's all thanks to you, Emma replied with a smile. Without your ideas and hard work, none of this would be possible. Their collaboration extended beyond the fort itself. As they spent more time together, they discovered how much they complemented each other. Daniel's practical skills balanced Emma's strategic thinking, while her creativity inspired him to dream bigger than he ever had before. One day, while overseeing the reconstruction of the Great Hall, Daniel paused to watch Emma speaking passionately to a group of volunteers. She moved among them with ease, answering questions and encouraging their efforts. Her enthusiasm was contagious, lighting up the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. She's something else, isn't she? One of the workers said, noticing Daniel's gaze. She really is, Daniel agreed, smiling faintly. Later that evening, as they sat together on the fort steps watching the stars appear, Daniel turned to Emma with a thoughtful expression. You've changed me, you know, he said softly. How? She asked, curious. I used to think I didn't belong anywhere, that I was better off alone. But being here with you, working on this project, it's made me realize I can make a difference. That maybe I'm supposed to stay, to build something lasting. Emma's heart swelled with emotion. I feel the same way. Before you came along, I was lost. This fort was just another responsibility I didn't know how to handle. But now it's ours, Daniel finished for her, taking her hand in his. She smiled, squeezing his fingers tightly. Yes, ours. As weeks turned into months, the fort began to transform. Crumbling walls were repaired, faded murals restored, and broken windows replaced. The once neglected structure slowly came back to life, becoming a symbol of hope and unity for the entire community. Emma organized a grand reopening ceremony to celebrate its completion. Hundreds of people attended, locals, historians, tourists, all eager to see the newly restored landmark. As Emma stood on stage delivering her speech, she glanced at Daniel standing nearby, his arms crossed and a proud smile on his face. This fort represents more than our history, she told the crowd. It represents what we can achieve when we come together, when we bridge divides and honor the past while building toward the future. None of this would have been possible without the dedication of everyone here, and especially without someone who taught me the value of teamwork and trust. She gestured toward Daniel, who waved awkwardly as the audience erupted into applause. Though uncomfortable in the spotlight, he couldn't deny how proud he felt. Not just of the fort, but of what they had accomplished together. After the ceremony, Emma and Daniel wandered through the fort, admiring the final touches. Every corner reflected their hard work and shared vision. It's beautiful, Emma said softly, running her fingers along the smooth stone of a newly repaired wall. It is, Daniel agreed. But it's not just the fort. It's what it stands for. A fresh start. For both of us. Emma turned to look at him, her eyes shining with tears. Do you mean that? About staying? I do, Daniel replied firmly. This place has become home to me. Not because of the fort, but because of you. If you'll have me, I'd like to stay and keep building on this project on us. Emma threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. Of course I'll have you. Always. Through their journey, Emma and Daniel proved that love and purpose could transcend differences. Together, they had transformed not just a historic fort, but their own lives, finding belonging, connection, and a shared future in the process. The months following the fort's reopening brought profound changes for both Emma and Daniel. What had started as an unlikely partnership blossomed into something deeper. A love rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to making a difference. Daniel officially moved into the estate, trading his solitary life in the wilderness for a home filled with warmth and companionship. At first, adjusting to Emma's world wasn't easy. The opulence of her lifestyle still felt foreign. But he reminded himself that it wasn't about the wealth. It was about the people who mattered most. And Emma mattered more than anything. For Emma, having Daniel by her side gave her a sense of stability she'd never known before. His calm demeanor balanced her occasional impulsiveness, while his practical wisdom helped her navigate challenges with clarity. Together, they became a team, not just in restoring the fort, but in facing life's ups and downs. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled around the estate grounds, Emma approached Daniel with a thoughtful smile. I've been thinking, she began, leaning against the railing of the porch where they often sat together. About the future. Oh yeah, Daniel asked, raising an eyebrow. What about it? Well, Emma continued, choosing her words carefully. The fort is thriving now thanks to you. People visit every day, and the community loves it. But I want to do more, to leave a legacy that goes beyond this place. Daniel nodded, intrigued. Like what? A foundation, Emma explained excitedly. Something that supports conservation efforts, funds education programs, and helps preserve other historic sites like ours. We could name it after the fort, make it a symbol of hope and progress. Daniel grinned, impressed by her vision. That sounds incredible, but are you sure you want me involved? I'm no expert on foundations or fundraising. You're exactly the person I want involved, Emma replied firmly, taking his hand. Your heart is in all of this as much as mine. Besides, we make a great team, don't we? We really do, Daniel agreed, squeezing her fingers gently. Over the next few months, Emma and Daniel poured their energy into launching the foundation. They traveled to nearby towns, meeting with local leaders and gathering support. They hosted fundraisers at the fort, inviting guests to experience its history while learning about their mission. Slowly but surely, their dream took shape, becoming a beacon of hope for communities across the region. Through it all, their bond grew stronger. They faced setbacks and celebrated victories together, always reminding each other why they had started this journey in the first place. One evening, as they stood beneath the stars overlooking the restored fort, Emma turned to Daniel with a soft smile. Do you ever think about how far we've come? She asked. From that snake bite in the wilderness to all of this? All the time, Daniel replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it? If someone had told me back then that I'd end up here, with you, I wouldn't have believed them. Emma rested her head against his shoulder, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Me neither, but I'm glad it happened. You've changed my life, Daniel, in ways I never thought possible. And you've changed mine, he said softly. You've shown me that home isn't a place. It's the people you share it with. A year later, surrounded by friends, family, and members of the community, Emma and Daniel exchanged vows in a simple ceremony held within the walls of the restored fort. It was a fitting location, a testament to their shared journey and the love that had grown from adversity. As they danced under twinkling lights strung between ancient stone pillars, guests cheered and clapped, celebrating not just their union but everything they had built together. In his toast, One of the workers who had helped restore the fort summed it up perfectly. Emma and Daniel remind us that true strength lies in teamwork, that love can bridge even the widest gaps, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the greatest transformations. Years passed, and the fort remained a cherished landmark, a symbol of resilience and renewal. The foundation flourished, supporting countless projects and inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. Through it all, Emma and Daniel stayed side by side, navigating life's challenges and joys hand in hand. Their story became a legend in the community, a tale of two strangers brought together by fate, united by purpose, and bound forever by love. Because sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most extraordinary journeys. And in the end, it's not where you start, but who you choose to walk beside that truly matters. If Emma and Daniel's story touched your heart, share it with others. Let us know in the comments. How has teamwork or perseverance inspired you? Your stories inspire us to keep creating tales that matter.